The stars looked peaceful that night, but Commander Eric knew better. Space was never truly quiet. Signals traveled faster than whispers, and tonight, one such whisper had reached the heart of humanity, a cry for help from across the galaxy. It came through broken static. A strange alien voice, trembling, pleading for anyone to hear. No one knew who sent it, or what was hunting them. But the words were clear: help us, before the dark arrives. Eric stood on the command deck of the HSS Valor, the lead ship of the Terran war fleet. Around him, hundreds of ships moved through the void like silent blades. The fleet was massive: carriers, destroyers, and dreadnoughts, each carrying the weight of Earth's power. "Commander, we are entering the coordinates from the distress call," said Ensign Lena, her voice steady but her eyes filled with curiosity. "No known civilization exists in this sector." "Then we'll be the first to see what's out there," Eric replied, his tone calm but sharp. "Prepare for first contact. All ships on alert." The view screen flickered, showing a dying star system. The main planet below looked wounded, entire continents burning, massive craters glowing red, and thick clouds covering the sky. Energy readings were unstable. Whatever happened here, it wasn't natural. Then the sensors picked something up: faint energy signatures, scattered across the planet. "Survivors." "Commander, we're detecting life signs," Lena said, surprise in her voice. "But they're not human. They're weak. Very weak." Eric's eyes narrowed. "Send a recon team. I want to know who called for us." Within minutes, dropships launched from the Valor, cutting through the stormy clouds of the alien world. Lightning flashed across the sky as they descended. The planet's surface was a graveyard, shattered cities made of crystal and metal, now nothing but ruins. When the recon team landed, the silence was haunting. Lieutenant Merrick, leader of the ground unit, moved forward carefully. His visor showed faint heat signatures inside a broken structure. Inside, they found them, tall, silver-skinned beings with bright blue eyes. Only a few dozen remained, all weak and starving. Their bodies trembled as they saw the humans. One of them, an elder with dimming eyes, whispered in a shaky voice. "You answered." Merrick knelt beside him. "Who did this to you?" The alien pointed a trembling hand toward the darkened sky. "The shadows. They devour light. They took our sun. They will come for yours." The feed went silent for a moment as the fleet watched the transmission. The bridge crew exchanged uneasy glances. Shadows that eat stars? It sounded impossible, but the evidence was right in front of them. Back on the Valor, Eric turned to his tactical officer. "Any record of a species like that?" "None, sir," the officer replied. "But if they can kill a star, they're beyond anything we've faced." Before anyone could respond, the ship's alarms blared. Red lights flooded the bridge. Unidentified contacts, incoming from the planet's orbit. Lena shouted. "Fast. Very fast." Outside, space itself seemed to twist. Black shapes emerged from the void, moving like smoke but solid, their edges sharp and shifting. There were no engines, no lights, just shadows with glowing red cores, like burning eyes. "Raise shields. All ships to battle stations," Eric ordered. The shadows didn't communicate. They attacked instantly. Energy beams cut through the void, striking one of the escort ships. It vanished in a flash of light. The humans fired back, but their weapons seemed to pass through the enemy like mist. On the ground, Marek's team watched as the sky turned black. "Commander, we're under attack," he shouted through the comms. "Something's blocking the sun. It's not a ship, it's alive." The feed broke. The battle grew desperate. Human ships unleashed their full power: plasma cannons, missiles, railguns, everything they had. One shadow creature finally broke apart under the assault, dissolving into a cloud of dark mist. The fleet cheered, but the victory was short-lived. For every shadow destroyed, 3 more appeared. "We can't hold this position," Eric said, gripping the rail. "Order the fleet to retreat to high orbit. Cover the ground team's extraction." Explosions lit the darkness as the fleet fought to pull back. Dropships raced to evacuate the survivors and the recon team. Amid the chaos, the alien elder reached out to Merrick. "You cannot run forever," he said softly. "They follow the light. They will find you." Merrick looked at him, confused. "Then what can we do?" The elder smiled weakly. "Only the children of fire can stand against the dark. That is why we called you." Moments later, the dropship lifted off as a shadow creature tore through the ruins below. From space, Eric watched the surface of the planet collapse, the entire world folding into darkness as if swallowed by night itself. Silence followed. Only the distant hum of engines filled the bridge. Lena turned to Eric. "Sir, what were those things?" Eric looked out at the fading light of the dying planet. His face was calm, but his voice carried quiet steel. "I don't know. But they made one mistake." Lena frowned. "What's that, sir?" "They called for help," he said. "And humanity answered." Outside the viewport, the fleet formed up again, engines burning bright against the void. The shadows had taken one world. But now, the humans were coming. And this time, the darkness would learn to fear the light. The Terran war fleet moved through the stars like a storm of light. Behind them, the dying planet burned silently, one more world swallowed by the shadows. Ahead lay the unknown. Commander Eric watched from the command deck of the HSS Valor, his face unreadable, his eyes sharp as steel. "Status?" he asked quietly. "All ships accounted for, sir," Lena reported. "Minor damage to 3 destroyers. Ground team recovered. Alien survivors in medical bay, critical condition." Eric nodded. "Keep them alive. They may know how to stop whatever that was." For a moment, the bridge was silent. Outside, the stars shimmered as the fleet cruised through the void. But peace never lasted long in space. Not anymore. Suddenly, the tactical display lit up red. "Multiple contacts," shouted the sensor officer. "They're following us. 20, no, 30 shadow signatures." Eric clenched his jaw. "They're hunting us already. Should we prepare to jump to warp?" Lena asked. "No. If we run, they'll chase us to human space," Eric replied. "We fight them here, away from Earth, away from the colonies." The crew exchanged quick, tense glances. Everyone knew what that meant. This was going to be humanity's first real battle against an enemy no one understood. "Signal the fleet," Eric ordered. "Form defensive ring. Carriers in the rear. Bring all-point defense online. Let's show them how humans fight." Moments later, the fleet shifted formation, giant warships rotating into a tight, circular shield around the command ships. Energy fields shimmered, weapons charged, and thousands of human pilots strapped into their fighters. "Launch the squadrons," Eric said. In a flash, hundreds of small ships burst from the carriers, forming silver wings that glowed like stars. They moved fast, faster than anything the shadows had faced before. Humanity's air combat doctrine, refined over centuries, was about to be tested in deep space. "Targets incoming," shouted the sensor officer. "ETA 30 seconds. Out in the black, the shadows came. They didn't fly like normal ships, they drifted, bending light and space around them. Their movement was unpredictable, almost alive. No heat signatures. No signals. Just red, pulsing cores surrounded by swirling black mist. "Open fire," Eric commanded. The void exploded. Dozens of plasma beams shot out from human ships, cutting through the darkness. Missiles streaked forward like burning comets. The first wave of shadows met the attack, and several were ripped apart, dissolving into black smoke. The bridge cheered, briefly. Then the shadows adapted. Their forms changed, shifting shape mid-battle. Energy blasts bent around them, missiles vanished into thin air, and beams missed their marks. One shadow creature dived straight into a destroyer, phasing through its shields as if they weren't there. A second later, the ship went dark, every system offline. They're inside our hull, yelled Lena. They're eating our power systems. Eric's voice was calm but firm. Redirect power to external flares. Overload the shields. The engineers obeyed instantly. Massive bursts of energy flashed out from the Valor and surrounding ships. The sudden light burned through the void, and the shadows recoiled. For a few seconds, they pulled back, their forms flickering. Light hurts them, Eric muttered. Good. Then we'll give them the sun. He turned to his weapons officer. Deploy the solar lances. All of them. The officer hesitated. Sir, those weapons are unstable. They were never tested in full combat. Then this is the test, Eric replied. Moments later, the Valor's lower decks opened, revealing 6 massive cannons glowing bright orange. The weapons absorbed stellar energy directly, turning sunlight into destructive beams. Fire. The cannons unleashed. Brilliant spears of light tore across the darkness, striking the shadow swarm. The energy burned through them like wildfire. The first wave disintegrated, the second scattered. Even the massive shadow beasts began to twist and scream, a sound that echoed through the ship's sensors like whispers from a dying god. Direct hits. Lena shouted, excitement in her voice. They're breaking formation. The fleet pressed the attack. Fighters darted between enemy shapes, dropping miniature flares that exploded into bursts of white light. One pilot's voice came through the comms. This is Eagle One, they can't stand the light. Keep it bright. For a moment, victory seemed close. Humanity, fragile, small, new to this galactic war, was winning. But then the stars blinked. Every light in the sector dimmed. The shadows began to merge together, forming one massive shape. The red cores united into a single burning eye, larger than a moon. Space itself trembled. What is that? Lena whispered. The ship's sensors went haywire. Energy levels rising. It's absorbing the wreckage, and our light. The giant shadow opened what looked like a mouth, a black hole forming in its core. It began pulling ships toward it. One of the human carriers screamed over the comms before being ripped apart, swallowed whole. Eric gritted his teeth. All ships, focus fire on the core. Don't let it reach critical. The Valor's cannons charged again. The fleet unleashed everything: plasma, missiles, lances, railguns. The light returned, fierce and pure. The Shadow King howled, its form cracking like glass. And then, with one final blast from the Valor, the creature exploded, a blinding flash that filled every screen. When the light faded, the void was empty. The enemy was gone. The bridge erupted in cheers. Humans had done it, their first victory against the dark. But the celebration faded when Lena spoke again, her voice quiet. Commander, the alien survivors are awake. They want to speak to you. Eric nodded slowly. Patch them through. The alien elder appeared on the main screen. His voice was faint, but his eyes burned with ancient fear. You fought well, children of fire, he said. But that was only one. The true darkness is still coming. Eric's jaw tightened. Then humanity will be ready. The alien shook his head softly. No one is ready. The screen went dark. And somewhere, in the endless black between stars, hundreds of red eyes opened, watching. Humanity had won its first battle. But the real war had only just begun. The battle was over, but the silence that followed felt heavier than the war itself. The HSS Valor drifted through the debris field, surrounded by the wrecks of both enemy shadows and fallen human ships. Hundreds of escape pods floated in the dark, tiny specks of hope among the ruins of light. Commander Eric stood on the observation deck, his reflection faint against the starlit glass. How many did we lose? He asked quietly. Lena checked her console. 4 destroyers, 1 carrier, and 278 pilots missing or confirmed dead, sir. The number hung in the air like a ghost. Eric didn't speak for a moment. Then he simply said, Send their names home. Every one of them. Outside, repair drones buzzed around the Valor, patching hull breaches and cleaning scorch marks. Inside, the ship's med bays overflowed, both with human wounded and the few remaining alien survivors they had rescued from the dead planet. The alien elder, thin and fragile, lay surrounded by glowing medical screens. His silver eyes were open, fixed on the ceiling. Eric entered quietly. "You wanted to see me." The elder turned his head slowly. His voice was soft, almost like wind in a cave. "You fought the first shadow. You saw what it can do." Eric nodded. "We destroyed it." The elder gave a faint smile. "You destroyed its shell, not its heart." Lena, standing nearby, frowned. "What do you mean?" The alien's blue eyes dimmed. "They do not die, Commander. They return to the dark that birthed them. Each time you destroy one, the dark learns." Eric crossed his arms. "Then tell me what they are." For a long moment, the elder said nothing. Then, in a trembling voice, he whispered, "Once, long ago, they were us." The room went still. "What do you mean? Us?" Lena asked quietly. The elder's voice grew heavier. "Our kind reached too far. We built machines that fed on starlight, endless energy. But in our hunger, we tore holes in the night. The darkness looked back, and learned to hunger as well." He turned his gaze toward Eric. "We made them. They were born from our mistakes." The commander stood silent, processing the words. The idea that an entire ancient civilization had created monsters that ate stars, and then lost control, chilled him more than the void itself. "Why call for us?" he finally asked. "Why humanity?" The elder smiled faintly. "Because you burn brighter than most. You build in fire, you fight with light, and you fear nothing, not even the dark. You are like we once were." Before Eric could reply, the ship trembled. The lights flickered. A deep hum rolled through the decks. Lena looked up sharply. "What was that?" The intercom crackled. "Engineering to bridge. We're picking up something strange. It's not an attack. It's a signal." Eric turned. "From where?" "Everywhere," came the reply. "It's inside the comms, the sensors, even the navigation array." Lena's hands moved across her console. "Sir, it's not coming from space. It's inside our systems." Suddenly, the main view screen turned black. Then words began to appear, glowing red, shifting like fire. "We see you." The bridge fell silent. Lena whispered, "Is that them?" Eric's face was unreadable. "Put it through the translator." The red words flickered again. "You shine. We hunger. We follow the light." The signal filled the ship speakers with a low, pulsing sound, half static, half whisper. Crew members covered their ears as the noise grew louder. For a moment, the lights dimmed to almost nothing. "Cut the transmission!" Eric shouted. The sound stopped instantly. The bridge was silent again, except for the hum of the ship's engines. Lena's voice trembled. "Sir, that wasn't just a message. It tried to infect the system. It spread like a virus, living data." Eric looked toward the stars, where the void seemed to move. "They can speak through energy. They can move through light." The elder's voice came faintly over the comm. "Yes. They live where light dies. They will come faster now." The commander turned to his crew. "I want every ship in the fleet to go dark. No signals. No broadcasts. Total stealth mode." Within seconds, the entire human fleet dimmed its lights, running on minimal power. The stars outside looked colder, the darkness deeper. Even voices were hushed. For the first time in history, humanity, the species that built cities brighter than suns, hid in the shadows. Hours passed. No one spoke. The void was endless. Then, faintly, the sensors picked something up. A single object, moving toward them. Not fast but steady. It wasn't a shadow this time. It was small, metallic, artificial. Lena's eyes widened. Sir, it's a probe. Old design. Human signature. Eric's brow furrowed. From where? Earth, she said softly. Signal matches an old beacon from the Mars colonies. The room went silent. The probe drifted closer until it touched the Valor's hull. Then its panel opened, projecting a single message into the air, a hologram of an old admiral wearing Earth's insignia. To any Terran ship receiving this, the recording said, "This is Admiral Hark. Earth Command is under attack. Unknown entities breached the solar system 3 days ago. Our defenses are holding for now, but..." The hologram glitched, flickering with static. "They came from the dark side of Jupiter. They used our satellites. They..." The message broke off. The hologram froze. Everyone on the bridge stared at the projection, their faces pale. Lena whispered, "Sir, they've already found Earth." Eric didn't move. For a long moment, he simply stood there, staring into the stars. Then finally he spoke, his voice low and steady. "Set a course for home. Humanity doesn't run from the dark." The engines of the HSS Valor flared to life, breaking the silence of space. One by one, the ships of the Terran war fleet turned toward the distant blue light of Earth. Behind them, in the black void, the red words appeared once more, unseen by any human eye. "We are coming." The stars over Mars burned red like open wounds. For the first time in centuries, humanity's cradle among the stars trembled under siege. The HSS Valor dropped out of warp above the red planet. Below them, firestorms raged across the Martian colonies. Explosions dotted the surface like dying embers. The once bright domes of Olympus City were shattered, glass and steel drifting into the thin atmosphere. "By the stars," Lena whispered. "We're too late." "Not yet," Eric said firmly. "Open a channel to Earth Command." The screen flickered with static before an exhausted face appeared, Admiral Hark, the same man from the broken message. His uniform was scorched, his eyes bloodshot, but he stood tall. "Valor, you made it. The shadows hit us harder than we imagined. They came through the outer colonies first, used our satellites to mask their entry. We lost Neptune Station, then the belt. Mars is next, unless you hold that line." Eric nodded. "We'll hold it, sir. Whatever it takes." "Good," Hark said. "Because if Mars falls, Earth is next." The transmission cut off as another tremor hit. On the main display, the darkness near Mars shifted, and then, from behind the planet's shadow, they came. Thousands of shapes. Dark, twisting, fluid forms, some as small as ships, others the size of cities. Their red cores pulsed like heartbeats. The shadows had come in force. All ships, defensive formation. Eric ordered, "Protect the colonies. Keep them away from the surface." The Terran war fleet spread out, engines flaring bright. Fighters launched by the hundreds, like silver birds flying into a storm. On Mars, surface cannons powered up, giant towers of light reaching into the sky. And then, the darkness struck. Beams of black energy tore through space, shredding through the first human line. One cruiser disintegrated instantly. Another went silent, its lights vanishing as if swallowed whole. The Valor fired back, its solar lances blazing. The cannons ripped through the nearest shadow beasts, tearing them apart in blinding flashes. But for every one destroyed, 3 more appeared. Lena shouted, "They're overwhelming the flank." Eric stayed calm. "Redirect drones to Sector 6. Keep the line tight. Don't give them a hole." Below them, on the Martian surface, the people fought too. Soldiers fired plasma rifles from behind shattered domes. Civilians hid in tunnels, whispering prayers to the stars. One young boy looked up through a broken glass roof and saw streaks of fire across the sky, human ships burning for his world. In orbit, the Valor's deck shook violently. "Direct hit on port shields," the engineer yelled. Shields at 40%. Return fire. Eric snapped. Target the cores. The fleet fought with everything they had. Explosions painted the darkness red and gold. But then, without warning, the planet itself began to change. The ground cracked open. Massive black veins spread across the surface, glowing faintly red. The shadows weren't just attacking, they were infecting the planet. "Commander!" Lena cried. "They're burrowing into the crust. They're turning Mars into one of them." Eric's eyes narrowed. "Then we stop it now." He opened a direct link to all ships. "This is Commander Eric of the Valor. Humanity has come too far, fought too hard, to lose our home to the dark. You know what's at stake. Hold your ground. Light the void." The channel went silent, then voices came back, one by one. "Copy that, Valor. Standing with you, Commander. For Earth. For humanity." Every ship in the fleet powered up their solar lances. The light from hundreds of cannons lit up the black sky, forming a blazing wall of energy. The shadows howled, twisting in agony as light tore through them. But the victory came at a price. The HSS Orion, one of the fleet's largest carriers, was hit by 3 shadow beasts at once. The monsters latched onto its hull, draining its power. The carrier's captain, Commander Rios, came through the comms, his voice steady despite the chaos. "Eric, we can't shake them off. I'm taking the Orion into the rift." "Rios, no. You won't make it," Eric shouted. Rios smiled faintly. "Doesn't matter. Just make it count." The Orion's engines flared white-hot. It turned sharply, diving straight into the heart of the shadow swarm. For a brief, shining moment, the massive ship glowed brighter than the sun, and then exploded. The blast ripped through the darkness, destroying hundreds of shadow beasts in a single, burning wave. The light faded. The silence returned. Lena's voice trembled. "The Orion's gone." Eric stared at the wreckage. He did what had to be done. The fleet regrouped, battered but still fighting. Slowly, the shadows began to retreat, their forms fading back into the void. The surviving human ships circled Mars, weapons ready. For now, the planet was safe, or at least what remained of it. Hours later, the fires on the surface dimmed. The Martian sky cleared, showing a faint blue shimmer from the atmosphere domes. Humanity had survived the first invasion. But Eric knew it wasn't over. In the strategy room, he stood before a holographic map showing Earth's solar system. Dozens of red markers blinked near the outer rim, new shadow signatures forming again. "They're not stopping," Lena said quietly. "They won't," Eric replied. "Not until every star is gone." She looked at him. "So what do we do?" He turned toward the hologram of Earth, a small, blue light surrounded by darkness. "We take the fight to them." Lena frowned. "Into their space? That's suicide." "Maybe," he said. "But running won't save us. The shadows hunt light, so we'll give them more light than they can handle." At that moment, the Elder's faint voice echoed from the med bay through the comm. "If you enter the dark, you must carry something stronger than light. You must carry hope." Eric smiled faintly. "Then humanity's got plenty." Outside, the Terran fleet began to repair and reload. Broken ships were reforged. New weapons were mounted. The people of Mars, despite their losses, sent messages to the fleet, short, simple words that spread across every comm system. "For the light. For Earth. For all of us." And deep beyond the stars, in the black ocean of space, the shadows stirred once more. This time, they whispered in 1,000 voices, cold and hungry. "Come, children of fire. We are waiting." The war fleet stood ready, engines glowing, weapons charged, and human hearts burning brighter than ever. After the Battle of Mars, there was no turning back. Humanity had survived the darkness once. Now, they were going to chase it. Commander Eric stood at the command deck of the HSS Valor, looking out at the stars. Behind him, hundreds of ships waited in silence, the Terran war fleet, reborn from the ashes of Mars. Every soldier, every pilot, every ship knew what they were about to do. Lena stepped beside him. "Sir, all systems ready. Warp coordinates locked. But this will take us beyond known space." Eric nodded. "Good. That's where they hide." She hesitated. "Sir, you know we might not come back." Eric smiled faintly. "Then let's make sure it's worth the trip." The fleet aligned in perfect formation. Engines flared white. And in one shining moment, humanity vanished, diving straight into the dark. The transition was brutal. When the fleet dropped out of warp, there were no stars, no light, no sound, only endless blackness stretching in every direction. "This can't be right," Lena whispered. "The sensors aren't reading anything. Not even radiation." "It's right," Eric said quietly. "We've entered their space." The darkness wasn't empty, it was alive. The longer they stared into it, the more shapes began to form. Black mist twisting like smoke. Red lights flickering like beating hearts. The shadows' home, a world without light, feeding on what little escaped from dying suns. The fleet turned on its minimal lights, scanning slowly. There was no planet, no structure, only drifting debris. And then, faintly, something metallic glimmered in the distance. "Sir," said the sensor officer. "I'm picking up a large object, structure size. Could be a station. A shadow base?" Lena asked. "Maybe," Eric replied. "Or maybe something older." He ordered the fleet to advance. As they drew closer, the image became clearer. It wasn't a shadow creation. It was alien, massive, ancient, and broken. A ring-shaped station floating in the dark, covered in strange runes that pulsed faint blue light. Eric's eyes narrowed. "That's not their work. The shadows destroy everything. This survived." Lena nodded slowly. "Could it be from the same species as the Elder?" "Let's find out." A team of soldiers suited up and boarded the station. The inside was cold and silent, but untouched by decay. The walls were made of crystal and metal, still glowing faintly. Strange murals covered the corridors, paintings of suns, stars, and beings made of light. Merrick, the ground commander, moved ahead carefully. "Commander, you might want to see this," he said over the comm. Eric watched through the live feed. At the center of the chamber stood a massive sphere, floating in midair, pulsing softly like a heart. "It's still active," Lena said. "But how? There's no power source." The Elder's voice came through the channel from the med bay aboard the Valor. "It is a beacon," he whispered weakly. "Our last light. It was built to hold what we could not protect, the memory of our people." Eric stepped closer to the screen. "What does it do?" "It calls to the stars," the Elder said. "It remembers their names, and their light." Before Eric could respond, the sphere pulsed brighter, then projected an image into the air. A map of the galaxy appeared, filled with glowing points of light. Many were dark, flickering, but a very few, still shone brightly. Lena stared. "Are those surviving systems?" The Elder nodded. "Yes. Worlds where light still burns. Yours among them." But before anyone could speak, the alarms screamed. "Multiple contacts incoming," shouted the tactical officer. "They've found us." The shadows poured from the void, dozens, then hundreds, their forms twisting like living smoke. The fleet immediately formed up, firing their solar lances. Brilliant beams of light tore through the dark, but the shadows moved faster now, stronger than before. "They learned from Mars," Eric growled. "All ships, defensive ring. Protect the beacon." The battle began, fierce, chaotic, endless. Human ships fired continuously, each blast lighting up the blackness like a thunderstorm. Fighters darted between shadow creatures, dropping flares that burst in blinding light. The shadows struck back with crushing force. One dreadnought vanished in seconds, dragged into the void. Another ship lost all power, drifting helplessly until the darkness consumed it. Marek's voice crackled over the comm. "Commander, we can't hold them much longer. The beacon, it's reacting." The sphere in the alien station began to shine brighter, pure, white light bursting from its core. The shadows screamed, their forms twisting violently. The light grew stronger, spreading across the station, the fleet, and into the dark beyond. Lena covered her eyes. "Sir, it's overloading," Eric shouted. "Pull back. All ships retreat to safe distance." But before the order could finish, the beacon released its light. It wasn't a blast, it was a wave. A pulse of pure energy swept through the void, reaching far beyond the fleet's sensors. Everywhere it touched, the shadows fled, their forms dissolving into nothing. And for the first time, stars began to appear again in the darkness. Tiny, faint, but real. The light faded slowly. The alien station was gone, disintegrated. The Valor and the fleet drifted in the quiet aftermath, shaken but alive. Lena stared out at the stars returning one by one. "Sir, what was that?" Eric exhaled slowly. "Hope." The elder's voice came softly through the comm. The beacon burned itself to send a message, not just to light, but to life. Across the galaxy, others will see it. The dark will feel it. Eric looked at the faint stars. "Then it begins again." Lena frowned. "What begins?" He turned to her, his expression calm but fierce. "The hunt." Behind them, far across the stars, the shadows stirred once more, furious, wounded, and afraid. Their whispers filled the void like wind. "You cannot hide in light forever." But for the first time in history, it was the darkness that feared. And humanity, small, stubborn, unstoppable, was coming. The stars had returned. Not many, just a few, but they were enough. Enough to show that the galaxy still lived. Enough to prove that hope could fight back against the dark. Weeks had passed since the beacon's sacrifice. Humanity's fleet was damaged, but not broken. Across the Terran command ships, new signals began to arrive, faint transmissions from distant worlds. Voices calling out. "Survivors." "Sir," Lena said as she entered the bridge. "We're receiving more messages every hour. Colonies we thought were gone. They saw the light. They're alive." Commander Eric stared at the glowing map before him. Each new light represented a world reborn, planets that had been silent now whispering again. "How many?" he asked quietly. Lena smiled faintly. "Hundreds. Maybe thousands." Eric looked out at the stars. "Then we're not alone anymore." Far away, deep within the void, the shadows gathered. They were not used to fear. They had ruled in silence for eons, feeding on every flicker of life and light. But now, the darkness trembled. Something ancient had awakened. Something they could not destroy. The elder, now stronger, stood with Eric on the bridge. His form shimmered faintly, still weak but glowing from within. "The beacon's light spread across the void," he said. "Many will rise because of it. But the dark will not rest. It will strike again, harder." Eric nodded. "Then we'll be ready." The fleet was growing. Not just human ships now. Alien vessels began to arrive, one by one. Some were massive, others barely holding together. All carried the same message: "We saw your light." On the 10th day, a new ship appeared, shaped like crystal, glowing blue. From it, a voice spoke through the comm. "We are the Solarii. The light reached our home. We come to stand with you." Then another transmission. "This is the Varen Collective. The shadows took our worlds. But your signal showed us the way." More and more joined, until space around Mars shone like a city of stars, fleets of every kind, united by one small species that refused to die. Lena watched with awe. "We started this, and now they follow us." Eric smiled. "They're not following. They're remembering who they are." Preparations began. The fleet, now called the Alliance of Light, would strike deep into the dark zone where the shadow's heart pulsed. It was a region no one had entered before and returned. The Elder called it the Maw, the birthplace of the darkness. Inside, the shadow's core fed on dying stars, turning light into silence. To end them forever, the fleet had to destroy that core. Eric stood before thousands of soldiers, his voice steady but strong. Every world behind us believes we can win. Every light that still burns depends on us. We're not just fighting for Earth, or for Mars, or for our own kind. We're fighting for every voice the dark tried to silence. For every star it tried to swallow. For the right to live in light again. His voice echoed through every ship. We go, together, into the dark, and we make it see us. The fleet roared to life. As they entered the Maw, everything changed. The stars vanished again, replaced by swirling black clouds and flashes of red lightning. The air itself seemed to hum with whispers. "Commander," said Lena, "shields are holding, but the readings are off the scale. There's something huge ahead." Then they saw it. The shadow core was not a planet or a sun. It was a wound in space, a hole where light itself died. From it poured endless shapes, massive and terrible, forming an army as old as the galaxy. Eric gritted his teeth. All ships, open fire. Beams of light cut through the dark. Explosions flashed across the void. The shadows screamed and surged forward, their forms twisting into monstrous shapes. For every one destroyed, two more appeared. "Sir," Lena shouted. "They're surrounding us." Eric glanced at the Elder. "You said the dark feeds on dying light. What happens if it meets living light, light that fights back?" The Elder's eyes widened. "It would burn." Eric nodded. "Then let's burn it." He opened a channel to the fleet. "All ships, activate core overdrives. Channel all reactor energy into the solar lances. No retreat. We fight until the dark remembers our name." The fleet obeyed. Each ship glowed brighter, their hulls shining white, like small suns against the void. Human and alien voices shouted as one. The sky turned to fire. The shadows charged, and met the light head-on. When the beams hit, the darkness screamed louder than thunder. The core trembled. Cracks of light spread across it, glowing lines tearing through blackness. The Elder raised his hands, channeling his own power. "Now, Commander. The heart is open." Eric slammed his hand on the console. All ships, full barrage. Every gun, every cannon, every soul fired at once. A single, blinding burst consumed the core. The darkness shattered. Silence followed. Then, one by one, stars began to appear, brighter than before. The fleet floated in pure light. The shadows were gone. The maw was empty. Lena's voice trembled. We did it." Eric looked around the bridge, at the exhausted crew, the flickering lights, the endless stars. "No," he said softly. "We all did." The Elder smiled, fading slowly. "The dark will return someday. It always does. But now, the galaxy will remember the light that fought back." He placed a glowing hand on Eric's shoulder. "Humanity answered the cry. And the galaxy will never forget." As the Elder's form dissolved into golden light, it spread across the fleet, touching every ship, every being. Everywhere it passed, the shadows inside hearts disappeared. Eric looked out at the stars one last time. "For every world that fell, for every light that dimmed, we rise." Lena whispered beside him, "The light of humanity." Eric smiled. "And it never goes out." Somewhere, far away, on a quiet world that once knew only darkness, a child looked up at the sky and saw a new star shining where none had been before. She smiled, not knowing that across the galaxy, others were doing the same. The war was over. But the story of humanity, the story of light, had only just begun.